Hello, Pre-Algebra students. This is Chapter 7.5, Percent of Change. Let's begin. The International Balloon Fiesta takes place every year in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In 1999, 903 balloons participated. In 2000, 1,019 balloons participated. By about what percent did the number of balloons increase from 1999 to 2000? A percent of change indicates how much a quantity increases or decreases with respect to the original amount. If the new amount is greater than the original amount, the percent of change is called percent of increase. If the new amount is less than the original amount, then the percent of change is called percent of decrease. There's a simple formula we can use to solve for percent of change. It looks like this. The percent of change is equal to the amount of the increase or decrease divided by the original amount. Using that formula, let's solve our problem for the International Balloon Fiesta. We want to know the percent of increase in the number of balloons from 1999 to 2000. So we write our formula, P% equals the amount of increase over the original amount. Let's substitute in our numbers. The amount of increase will be represented by the number of balloons in 2000 minus the number of balloons in 1999 over the original amount, 903. Now we subtract and then divide to solve. We find that there were 116 more balloons in 2000 than there were in 1999. And dividing gives us an approximate answer of 0.128, which we then convert into decimal form to show percent. 12.8% is the amount of increase between the 2 years. Now try this on your own. Solve these 3 percent of change problems using the percent of change formula. We've solved a percent of increase problem. Now let's find a percent of a decrease. What is the percent of decrease from 512 to 320? Let's use our formula. Percent equals amount of decrease over original amount. Our percent of decrease then will equal our original number minus our new number to find our difference or our amount of decrease, and our original amount goes in our denominator. 512 minus 320 gives us 192 over 512. Now, we simply reduce this fraction to 3/8, which we can then rewrite in percent form as 37.5%. Our percent decrease from 512 to 320 was 37.5%. Use the percent of change formula to solve for these 3 percent of decrease problems. If you know the original amount and the percent of change, you can find the new amount. First, multiply the percent of change by the original amount to find the amount of change. Then increase or decrease the original amount by the amount of change. Let's work an example that illustrates this idea. There were about 198,000 spectators at a sports event in 1995. The number of spectators increased by about 12% between 1995 and 2002. How many spectators were there in 2002? Let's begin with our formula. Spectators in 2002 will equal spectators in 1995 plus the amount of increase. Let's substitute what we know. We're solving for 2002. And remember, I'm using that as a variable, not as a number I'm going to work with. In 1995, we had 198,000 spectators plus a 12% increase over 198,000. So 12% of 198,000. I'm going to rewrite this with my percent as a decimal. And now I can solve. Let's see, 12% of 198,000 equals 23,760. Now I add to find my final number. In 2002, there were 221,760 spectators. Now try this on your own. Increase 45 by 20%, and then decrease 85 by 28%. We have one final technique to learn in this chapter before you're ready to move on to the practice problems. Referring back to our problem with the attendees at the sporting event, please note that this is another way to write the process that we used. We took 100% of 198,000 and added that number to 12% of 198,000 to find our increase. This suggests another way that we could find the new amount. For percents of increase, rather than finding 100% of the original number and adding it to the percent of increase, we could simply take 100% plus the percent of increase and multiply that by our original amount. In other words, we could have solved by taking 198,000 and multiplying it by 112%. For percents of decrease, we could multiply the original amount, which represents our 100%, and subtract our percent of change. Let's work an example that does this right now. In 1983, the average price of an audio CD was $21.50. By 2000, the average price had decreased by 34.8%. What was the average price of a CD in 2000? Okay, so all we're going to do is take the price in 2000, which is our unknown, let's call it X, and take the price in 1983, $21.50, and multiply that by 100% minus 34.8%. Giving us a percent of 65.2, which represents the percent of $21.50 that the cost would be in 2000. We want to write our percent as a decimal. And then we multiply to solve, which gives us a price of $14. And it actually says 0.18, so we would round that to $14.02. So the average price of a CD in 2000 was about $14.02, which represents a 34.8% decrease from the average price in 1983, which was $21.50. That wraps up our work on Chapter 7.5. I'll see you tomorrow for more practice with percents of change.